Hopefully you can hear me now. Yes, much better. All right. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Welcome. It's Thursday night. Trying something new with the setup. Don't know if I like it. We'll see how it goes. If you're anything like me, you're tired. I'm exhausted. I didn't want to be here tonight. I was really being lazy today. Generally a frustrating day. It's rainy and windy and cold and yucky out. So, but I'm here and you're there. So thank you for joining. I appreciate it. If you're watching this after the fact, welcome. I'm glad you're with us. One thing to note, I'm going to try to put in a class on Saturdays. Thinking morning time frame. It will be primarily a conditioning class. So we'll do some cardio, get our heart rate up before jumping jacks, a few other things. I'm not sure what. I hate burpees, so we're not going to do burpees. Then we're going to do the longsword yoga routine, and I'll even do one with a lightsaber. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever implement you have to use. And then we're going to do some additional cardio afterwards, some push-ups in there. So I'm going to try to make it 45-ish minutes because the longsword yoga is 30 minutes, thereabouts. So I want to put like 10 minutes on each side for some push-ups, jumping jacks, and some other cardio. I may get a chair out and do some dips. So I'll encourage you to do that as well. I think it's something everybody has in their house, obviously, so we can do it. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Thank you to everybody that gave me feedback and suggestions. Keep them coming. I love it, right? We cover a lot of topics here, and I cover a new topic every class because we're not here to practice it, right? If we were all here in class, we would take a little bit more time, run through drills. You guys would practice it. I would show it, go back and forth. So we wouldn't kind of cover as much as we've been covering in the last month. And yes, it's been a month, maybe 5 weeks since we started these. I'm walking too much. Sorry. So, I like the feedbacks and suggestions of what you guys would like to see because we can add that and cover it. The good thing is these are all archived. I'm starting to pull out some quick cuts from these as well, so you don't have to hunt through an entire class hour long to find the 5 or 6 minutes that you wanted to look through. So with that, we're going to follow the same routine we've been doing. We're going to start with our stretching routine, do some push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, get our heart rate up, do our footwork, some cuts. I'm going to do a couple of, we're going to do some high line rising cuts today from a shoulder guard, pushing up, right, up and back, and then a combination high line rising descending cut as part of our footwork drill. Then we're going to, second half of class, talk about radial movement. Haven't really talked about radial footwork much in here. We've done it in class a few times, but I want to talk about that, do some drills there, and then we'll do a cut combination if we have time. We'll see how things go. I want to talk about tempo. There's a lot of things we want to talk about. We'll see if we get to them today or we just roll it into next week. With that, I hope everybody's okay and doing good. If you're not or you need to talk, reach out, right? There's always somebody here that will just, chat, right? So hit me up, hit it into the chat, whatever you need to do. All right, so let's do our stretch. Shoulder width apart, up to the ceiling. Down to your toes, knees, ankles, floor, whatever you can reach tonight. Walk it out, downward dog. Keep your butt up in the air. Dive down, roll up into cobra. Up into plank. Left foot up, get a nice stretch. And back. Right foot up. And back. Chin to your chest, head between your arms. As you're doing these, try to go as quietly as you can. That way you can really focus on the movement. Walk it in, stay in a squat on your tiptoes. Roll up nice and slow. If you heard that, those are my knees cracking as I do this. And up to the ceiling. And out to the walls. Down. So as you do this, if you just throw your leg forward, throw your body around, you're really not engaging your core. You're really not engaging your body in the movement. And that's the whole reason we do this, is to warm ourselves up, get ourselves moving, and start to get aware of our body's before class, right? I might not realize, ooh, I got a little back kink. Okay, well, I realize that as I do the opening routine, so I can be aware of that as I work out, right? You don't ever want to go in cold. I mean, cold, mentally cold, right? You want to understand how you're feeling and how you're doing and the headspace you're in before you start any workout. So with that, we're going to do our jumping jacks. So 20 jumping, 25 jumping. I think we're going to do 25. 25 jumping jacks, then transition down into 20 push-ups and 40 sit-ups. I'm going to shut my mic off in between this so you don't hear me bouncing around. But are you ready? Let's get going. Surprised I haven't lost my mic yet during those. So I didn't, almost did. So push-ups, 20 push-ups, your style. Remember, go slow, do what you can do. Push yourself to do a little bit more every time we do these. Every time, do a little bit more. All right, so 20 push-ups, roll over, 40 sit-ups. All right, let everybody catch up. Remember, push yourself, right? If you get gassed at 15 every single class, push yourself to do 17, right? Tomorrow, do another quick 10, right? Later tonight, do a little bit more. Get your body used to building and used to pushing itself. The more you do that, the more you'll see benefits and the faster you'll see benefits. All right, so 40 sit-ups, your style, your pace. So I'm going to shut this off, take this out. All right. Give everybody a chance to get themselves organized. Cool. Make sure you have water handy. Stay hydrated. I have coffee somewhere. All right. Footwork. Footwork. Single advance, single retreats, forward and back. 10 up, 10 back. We'll switch our feet as we always do. Remember, don't just do this as an exercise of moving fast, right? Check your alignment. Make sure you're properly standing. Make sure your toes are pointing forward. Your knees aligned over your foot, right? And that you're, properly in position to do it. As you're moving back, don't cant in or back with your body. Keep your back nice and straight. Keep your center of gravity here. Don't find yourself leaning as you're moving, right? So, right foot forward, left foot back. Single step in forward, single step retreat. 10 forward, 10 back. Ready? Go. 2. Take, pause. Take, let's do this a little bit today. Sorry, just like you're here, right? Tangents. Take bigger steps forward, bigger step back. So extend your step than what you would normally do, right? A little bit different tonight. So right foot forward, 10 up, 10 back. Go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switch feet. So I think it looks like I'm moving at about a 4-foot gap here between the two. So it's not a huge step. It is a gathering step. It's not meant to be a huge step, but I did want to extend our pace, our gap here, or distance here as we walk these out. So 10 more left foot forward. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. It's a little harder when you're taking longer steps because your body extends itself and your head will naturally kind of dip a bit, but try to keep your head and upper body super quiet. You know what I mean by that? By not moving your body, upper body with your lower body. Right? So, double advance, double retreat. Right foot forward, left foot back. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Last one. 10. Good. Switch feet. Double retreat. Double advance, double retreat. Go. Big steps. Right? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. You should feel that, right? Right in your hips as you're doing this, especially if you are pushing yourself and you're going a little bit longer of a step, longer of a stride. All right, let's do some cuts. Grab your saber, grab your sword, whatever you want to take. Let's do from shoulder guard. Want to do some rising cuts at the high line. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So our arms are staying in the high line the entire time. So above our solar plexus, right? Rotating, using that top hand, or your hand, your rear hand is driving the direction of your cut, right? A cut stepping forward, a cut stepping back. 10 times each side forward. So right foot forward, left foot back, shoulder guard. Again, remember where we start in this, right? I may not want to start in this guard because, again, I'm telling my opponent what my intention is. I may want to start and pull them back into this guard to suck them into me so that they enter in my space for that counter attack or that initial attack. Right? So the rising cut is to the torso up under the arm, right? So it's bang. Yes, I'm ending it at the eyes, but if I do it right, I'm actually contacting about here. So you can see in the camera, I'm contacting my opponent about, you know, in this part of the body, depending on what their guard is. If they have a low guard, you're going to get into the torso. If they're in a high guard, right, so if they're across, picture this, they're across from you in a forward guard or a high guard, you're coming up into this section of them. So hopefully that makes sense. 10 each side. We're going to go through first, do a couple slow. So step forward, 1, rotate, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do that again, same side, 10 more. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, cool, good. You want the blade to pull your body forward. I'm not stepping and then cutting, right? I'm letting my blade pull me in to my opponent, right? Blade first, body second. We talked a lot about that on Tuesday. Switch feet, right foot forward. So, right hand still on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to do that again, don't worry. 10 more. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Awesome. Now let's extend that 2 steps. First step forward will be the rising cut. Second step forward will be a descending cut. So it'll be 1, 2. 1, 2. Right, we're going to do that linearly, but that second cut can be off to the side. But just realize, if I go up 1, 2, well, my retreating rising cut, right, it's not in the right line. So we're doing this as a drill, right? We're doing this as a drill. My drill is to gain muscle memory, conditioning, footwork, body mechanics, right? So that's why I'm doing it up and back, right? Would I ever attack off to the side? Well, then my opponent, I'm at a different angle of attack to my opponent, right? So I'm not going to do the retreating steps because I'm not in the same line of attack. This is a drill. So for the drill, left foot forward, right foot back, shoulder guard. Step forward, rising cut. Step forward, descending. Keep it on the high line though. I don't want you to go down the middle guard. Keep it on the high line. Rotate, retreating, rising, retreating, high line cut, descending cut. Make sense? Cool. Left foot forward, 10 up, 10 back. 10 cuts, up and back. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get your hips moving with every cut. I know the first few that I was doing, I wasn't, which hopefully you saw me kind of correct myself once I started watching myself in the mirror. Mirrors are great to use. So are cameras if you can, but small image, right? Mirrors are great to use. If you got a mirror to work across from and you're not doing that now, grab a mirror. If you got a partner, you're doing this with your significant other or your sibling or whomever, great. Get them across from you, do it at each other and back, right? That way you can see the movements that your partner is doing. If not, use a mirror and fight against yourself. Right foot forward. Do this one slow. So, 1. Oh, by the way, high forward guard. 2. High middle guard. 1, 2. Right? So, 2 up, 2 back. Right foot forward, shoulder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Practice that. It's a great combination. Right now, if I'm against an opponent, and we're going to talk about stepping off the line of attack in the combination we're going to do later today, right? I wouldn't necessarily do this linearly. Again, it's a drill, right? I might come up for 1, see what they're doing, right? If they're there, then I might want to step out for that strike down. If they go to parry my attack and I see them kind of try to come up for a high parry, well, they're opening up, they're outside. So if they see me coming in, go for a high parry to parry my upward cut coming in, my rising cut, their backside is wide open, right? That's when I step to the outside and strike down. So if I'm here, bang, because remember their backside was open for that strike, right? That's also where I want to step offline, because in case they do come in and want to counterattack with a thrust, or they want to push my blade in opposition off the line so they can come in with a counterattack of their own, I want to move to this side before they have an opportunity. I want to move and create a new center line before they have an opportunity. Let's do those drills one more time, right? 5 each side, double the combination cut forward and back. So left foot forward, right shoulder, step forward, cut up, cut down 1, 2, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Switch your feet. Right foot forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. It's a good drill to practice. It's a good combination to practice. Yes, you're going, both cuts are in the high line, but you're moving from potentially left inside to outside. You're also, the angle of the attack is a different angle. It's a rising angle versus a descending angle, right? So you're going to throw your opponent into a little bit of a point of confusion. That's what you want, at least, right? You can use this combination as a false attack, so out of measure attack. You can use it as an in measure combination cut, right? If you land on the first one, great. Finish up with the second one. All right, let's do our cutting form. Trying to find where I am on the camera here. There we go. Let's do our cut form. So, natural stance. We're going to do all 8 strikes going forward. Turn. 8 strikes coming back. Ready? Downward cut. We'll do half cuts. 1, 2, horizontal cut. 3, 4, rising cut. 5, downward cut. 6, upward. 7, turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'll end with the thrust. 8. I don't know if you caught the thrust on the side, but remember, our thrust is back leg is straight, front leg is bent, knee is over your instep, right? Your feet are aligned to where you're attacking. Toes are aligned to where you're attacking, right? When I thrust, my blade comes out first, and then I thrust. Blade out, thrust. Blade out, push it forward in the lunge. Blade out, push it forward in the lunge. You want a good drill? We'll do that next time. Whatever number we'll end up doing, 20, 30 per side, right? We'll do our 50 lunges in, so we'll do 25 per side. Maybe we'll do that tonight. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Cool. Push-ups and sit-ups. All right, 20 push-ups, 40 sit-ups. Your style, your count, your pace. All right, I'm going to shut my mic off and go for it. Man, I'm glad I shut my mic off. Whew, I was grunting and groaning on that one. I'm tired tonight. 40 sit-ups. I'll shut my mic off again. Your style, your count, whatever you need to do, right? All right. I don't know if the mic or the camera caught what I was trying to do there. I don't know how visible it is, to be honest with you. I kind of call them pulses. These are a little bigger than what we do as a pulse. A pulse to me is I keep my knees up and I just kind of constrict. I keep tension on my core the entire time. These are a little bit longer than that, a little extended that, but they weren't quite the crunches that I was doing earlier. But if it looks easy, it's not. But no good core exercise is easy. You should feel it the entire time you're doing it. If you're doing all these and you're walking out of this and you're like, meh, it was all right, I want you to, one, push yourself next time. Two, watch your form, because you may be going too fast. You may be cheating yourself out of the benefit from this. And that's really the key, right? I'm not there. I don't care if you do. I do care. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not measuring you doing what you do. You do what you can get done. But challenge yourself and grow, right? You're spending time watching this. Get something out of it. That's what I expect, hopefully, for you. All right. Let's talk a little bit and do a couple radial movement drills. Let me get a cone here for us. For those that have been in the class, you know when I do this and you know what I'm going to do and talk about. For those that haven't, what we're going to talk about are moving in a circle around your opponent. Let me get that where it's visible. That's pretty good. All right. So that's my opponent. I'm going to stay back a little bit, right? So I am about 7 feet, 6 feet from my opponent right now, right? These strips are 4 feet wide. I can move forward and backward in my opponent's space. I can step in, I can step out, right? I can step 2 angles, which we've done, I think was one of the first classes. I can step in at an angle. I can step in at an angle. Or I can step retreating at an angle, or retreat at an angle, right? Easy. We'll go through radial angular movements in another class, but walking, sometimes I just got to keep moving, or I've got to get to that line of entry to my opponent. So I need to walk in a circle. We don't fight on a strip, right? No matter what league you're in, we fight in a square of some size, right? So I want to be able to navigate around that space. Too often you will get people, especially if there are stripes on the floor or a strip on the floor, a fencing strip on the floor or something, and they've got this big square. Everyone kind of fights in a line, right? Easier to judge, but man, you know, you're not taking advantage of the space you have, right? And then you're doing yourself an injustice if you don't take advantage of the space at your disposal. So, moving in a circle, right? If I'm right foot forward, left foot back, a couple things. I can cross step as I walk around my opponent. Problem is, every time I do this, yes, I'm maintaining my line of attack. I'm maintaining a simple distance to my opponent. My hips are aligned toward my opponent the entire time. I'm not rotating my hips around, right? So my attack vector stays the same for the entire circle. The challenge is every single time I cross my feet, it's the most dangerous position I can be in. You may be perfectly stable in this position, but how well can you really move from here? Maybe better, maybe not, doesn't know, but it's not the optimal position to be in, right? It's not a solid base. That being said, my second option is I can step with my front foot out and close back. So when I do that, I open myself up to my opponent to a line of attack. Now I'll immediately close that line. But no matter what direction I do it, if I step to the left, my back foot first, I'm opening myself up before I close my front foot. Open, close. Versus, yes, I stay closed the entire time, but I end up being in this twisted position that could put me off balance. So what you got to do is think of either of those two movements as transitional movements, right? I don't want to attack here or stepping across here. Remember, my opponent's in front of me. Can I attack from there? Sure, right? But I want them to be transitional movements. I don't want to be caught by my attacker walking in around them, right? Because if they're smart, and if you're smart, I'll get my head out of that screen. As you're doing this, you're thinking, watching your opponent move. If I'm in the middle and I'm watching my opponent circle me, I've got to find that moment for an attack. Either when they're going to give me a big wide target to strike, or if they're going to give me an off-balance position where I can strike in on them and get inside their space and maybe put them on their heels a little bit, right? So as the center person, maybe a better way of saying it, why not, right? I'm looking for my opponent as they walk around me for that transitional step when I can take advantage of it and capitalize and attack in, right? As the moving person, I don't want to get stuck there. I want to move, and again, I'm doing this for intention. Can I sit there and just kind of jog around my opponent and jog in circles? Sure. I'm going to sit in the middle and wait for you to stop or get tired, right? Am I using that as a distraction to then come in and go, maybe, okay, cool, I've seen it work. We've all seen it work, I'm sure. Just move. I say this every single time, right? Because someone always says, but. Yeah, I know. Move with intention. If you're intentionally moving in a rapid succession around your opponent, great, right? Because you're doing it intentionally. If you don't realize you're doing it, stop. Move with intention. You'll be more successful that way. So again, radial steps. I got two options. I can step where I keep my hips in alignment and stay in a closed stance the entire time as I move around my opponent. All right, get my head out of that box. Or I can move opening my stance and closing it, alternating around my opponent. So again, I present a wider attack area, but then I close that, but I offer a very stable base. Pro and con to each. Now yes, I'm right foot forward, so moving to my right, moving counterclockwise, I do the crossing step. Moving clockwise, I do the opening closing step. But if I'm left foot forward, it's the same thing. If I move counterclockwise, I open my stance, close my stance. If I move counterclockwise, I cross my feet, uncross. But I stay closed the entire time. Just depends on the lead foot you have, right? So the two ways of moving radially, depending on what your lead foot is, that both have, they each have a pro and a con, right? I maintain a stable base, but I open myself up. I keep my line closed, but I end up with a bit of an unstable base for part of the attack, part of the movement. So, hope that makes sense, right? Nice drill to practice that is just put a cone on the floor, put a red cup on the floor, put your kid on the floor, whatever you want to do, and walk around them. Now, what I want to kind of do is what we do in class all the time is as we circle around some center point, I want you to be very aware with how you're moving relative to the center. So right now that center is on the line. My front foot is on my next line, so I'm 4 feet from my opponent. Am I even in the side mirror at this point? I have no idea. All right, let's push this up and be there. So we're going to do in half, split the difference here. So there's half of that line, half of this line. Good. So we are 4 feet away from my opponent. I want to maintain that distance. So here's a visual reference. Whoop, it's getting away from me. Flat edge for nothing, huh? Suba kills it. Anyway, sorry. So it should be roughly 4 feet, right? 32-inch blade, 33-inch blade, 15-inch hilt, 48 inches, 4 feet. Is that right? Somebody correct me. So I'm here, right? My blade's out. I can cross step to get around my opponent. Keep my line closed the entire time. But when I do that, and yes, my head's going behind this, look at now where my foot is relative to my opponent. I've come in 15 inches. Because as I stepped in to the circle. Natural movement. I stepped forward as I stepped, right? So every time I step forward, I step closer and closer to my opponent. So what you need to do is make sure you step along the circumference of that circle. So I step out, not in, back. Step out, back, out. And yes, my head's behind the thing, but you can see my foot and my toes have maintained that 4-foot distance to my opponent. That's the key with a radial step. Is our natural movement as humans is just to step in a little bit, whether I'm going across, even more, probably more exaggerated when I step across, because my foot wants to actually step in at an angle. The minute I do that, look how much closer I immediately get to my opponent. Even if I'm 2 feet away, I want to step out, so I close that line, out, close that line, so I maintain that distance to my opponent. So the key with radial footwork is, 1, choose the direction you're traveling the lead foot, understand the pros and cons of each, right? Stable base, open attack area, closed attack area, narrow base. And when you step, make sure you step along the circumference of the circle. Yeah, along the edge of the circle. You're not bisecting it, right? You might step across the circle, but make sure that foot ends where that circle is. We keep talking about it. I haven't done it yet. Maybe I'll use this opportunity to do it. I want to put a circle in the middle of this. Don't know how I'm going to do that with tape, but I'll figure it out, so that we can practice these radial steps around a circle, right? So if you have that at home, just throw some books on the floor, make a circle out of the books, whatever you want to do, and step around that circle and make sure you stay on the edge. You don't gain in. The best way to do it is go for a quarter of a turn, measure your distance, visually see how close if you became closer, reset, step back, go another quarter turn. All right, cool, I'm better. Okay, keep going quarter turns until you can start doing it without looking at your feet. We all kind of look down, we're doing these steps because we want to make sure we're the same distance. Don't do that until you're comfortable, then take your head up and look out and practice it with your head up and out, so you're not gaining that muscle memory of looking down as you're walking around your opponent. Contrary, I like to do the other side of the coin. If you're fighting someone who's walking around you, where are they looking? Right? You may catch them looking at their feet every once in a while. It's kind of natural and it's kind of human nature. But the minute you do that, be ready to capitalize on that. Right? Get that over on the side. All right. Cool. Does that make sense? All right. So radial footwork is super key. I'll have a drill we'll do to it in the next couple of weeks. We'll add a radial drill in. Maybe we'll even do some footwork as part of the conditioning class on Saturday. I think that's a really good idea. We'll add footwork into the conditioning, so you're weapon agnostic. You don't need to worry about what weapon in your hands, but we're going to get some conditioning, get our heart rate up. So I think that's a really good idea, and I'll work a radial step into that as well. Maybe not for this Saturday, but certainly for next week. All right, cool. Man, we're cruising through this today. We may end a little bit earlier because, again, I think all of us are a little tired, and I appreciate that. And so let's see how far we can get. Let's do a cutting combination. We're going to do the same cut we were doing before, but we're going to do it as a combo focused on looking down at my notes here that I put in my laptop on the floor. I want to do it, speaking of lines of attack, right? And not part of a drill. I want us to do it as line of attack, right? Because then you can take that and you can add to it and add in cuts as you go. It's going to be, we're going to start in middle guard. We're going to retreat back into a shoulder guard. We're going to step forward and do a rising cut. Right? Oh, sorry, I'm going to reverse it. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I'm like, I'm going to reverse it. We're going to step forward with a downward strike and then reverse it to a rising cut as we step out. I like that better. It's a little different than the footwork drill we were doing. So, erase those 30 seconds before. Middle guard, step back into shoulder, cut down. You can step back into high, right? Whatever guard you want to do, think of, start. We've been doing this long enough now, right? And especially those that are actually in here with me. I'm choosing one guard for all of these techniques, right? It might be a different guard per technique, but that's okay. I'm choosing one. As you go through our guards, you can see which ones you can apply to the different cuts and attacks and combinations that we do. And there are more than one, right? It isn't just exclusive to this guard, this cutting pattern. I can be in middle guard and do a downward cut. Now, as I do that cut, I'm in shoulder guard. I'm just transitioning through it versus starting there and stepping in. I can do these cuts as a single side advance, which we're going to do tonight, versus a stepping in? How much distance do I need to gain to my opponent? Right? That distance might help me dictate my footwork. How are my opponent's feet aligned? That might also dictate my attack, because I know I have a compound attack in mind. I see their footwork as a certain way. Maybe they're right foot forward as well. So they're right foot forward, left foot back across from me. I'm right foot forward across from them. If I step forward, I'm right foot forward, which means if I want their inside for this first strike, I've got to do an advancing step. Right? Because they're right foot forward and they're giving me their inside. If they're left foot forward, right, I may want to be right foot forward and step in for this strike to their inside. Because again, what I want to do here, maybe not again, I didn't probably go through this enough. What I want to do is I want to draw out that parry from them so that I can counterattack with my secondary cut and make an opening, right? Will it be a false attack or a feint? Could be, but I could also land it as a primary attack, right? So again, what we're going to try to do with this attack is target the descending cut to my opponent's inside, the secondary cut, rising cut to my opponent's outside torso. Why? So I want to do that slower. So let's start through this one more time. Cut drill. I want to do a compound cut, diagonal downward descending cut with a step off line rising cut to the torso. Right? Why am I doing that? I want to draw their defensive action, their parry or their counter cut to that high line where the attack is coming down to. That opens their torso up. Step off the line of attack, either a rising cut or a midline cut to their torso. Let's go through that one more time. So I'm doing a descending cut, which then draws their defensive action up. As they draw in for that action, I step off the line of attack, close my stance, and strike to either torso or underarms, upper torso area, right? Again, my opponent, no matter what guard they're in, say they're in a shoulder guard, I want to draw this movement. I want to draw them to that parry of that first descending cut. If I draw them into that descending cut, that should open up their outside line, right? So, footwork, right? Again, it depends on, let's go with the, our opponents are right foot forward, so they're inside, and if we are, their inside is to our right. So they are right foot forward, their inside is here, I would say to the front door for those that were in class, right? There's my opponent's structure, we've seen it, right? Their inside is facing here. I want to strike down to that inside to pull them into that strong inside parry. Okay? To do that, right, I have two choices. I can do an advancing step, right, with the same side if I want to mirror their stance. So if I want to go right foot forward, I can mirror their stance, loop in and strike with the descending cut. Or I can be left foot forward and step in for that descending cut, right? I may even cheat a little bit and step a little to the outside. Not move my leg and close my guard, because then if I do, it's harder for me to get to the opposite side. Step in, right? From here, I want to step out for that rising cut, because again, what I'm doing is I'm drawing their defense. That's if they're giving me their inside, it's right there. Depends on the measure I am to my opponent. If I'm right foot forward, I may just need a little bit, come in for the strike, knowing that my secondary strike is a rising to the torso or a midline to cut to the torso. If I'm a little farther out and I want to get a little distance to my opponent, I step in for that strike and draw them out and come around. Now, if my strike goes through their defense and I hit them, score a point, whatever, great, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to stop my action. I'm still going to come through and come into my secondary action. Because one, it's going to keep me safe, it's going to keep my guard in front of me, and it's also going to, if this one doesn't land, or if it isn't, if we're in a tournament setting and the judge doesn't see that, I have the secondary cut to score. So, again, our foot positioning, whether we're going to launch this attack from a right foot forward position or a left foot forward position really depends, and we're keeping one thing constant. Our opponent's right foot forward, they're giving their inside to my right. And it depends on the measure, the distance I am from my opponent. If I'm in close, or if we're in the middle of an encounter and all of a sudden I see that there, I might come in for the strike and not have to gain too much for that forward, so I can do a gathering step forward, a same side advancing step. If I'm out of measure, or I'm a little farther away and I want to put a little more oomph into the strike, I step into that with back leg. So if I'm see the opening, I see them there, I'm left foot forward, right? I'm up, step in for the strike. So I have the option to do either. Once I make the attack, the follow-up is my back leg steps to a new line of attack as my blade comes around and strikes. Now I put my foot first. Don't do that. Right? Bang. Let the blade pull you into the cut. So if I do it slow, it's step, step. Right? If I do it same side, it's step, step. I can be same side in shoulder guard, bang, boom. I can be left foot forward, stepping in, out. Right? That's the drill, the footwork we're going to do and the drill we're going to do. And again, that is, my opponent is right foot forward, left foot back, they're giving me their inside. I can draw my opponent into this same movement though, into this same defensive pattern if they're left foot forward. And they're presenting me their outside to my right. Right? So my opponent is now here. They're presenting their outside to me. Right? A good chunk of fighters' natural reaction is they want to parry to their inside. Right? They want to parry in strength with the whole body behind, the structure behind it. So if I have someone, they may actually step back for that parry, especially if I'm being overly aggressive and coming forward. So I can influence my opponent's actions by, I see their strike there, okay, they're giving me their outside, cool, I'm stepping in and I'm going to make that arc to really get them to drive in. I'm going to really drive through them, so I'm hitting deep into their area with that. Let them come in, then I can still come across and strike to their torso. So they're either going to naturally give me their inside, if I might be in a little closer measure, or they're going to give me their outside and I'm going to force them to show their inside based on the strength and aggression of the attack. Does that make sense? Right? All right, let's do the drill. So let's start right foot forward. We're going to do a gathering step forward with the descending cut, step out with the back leg with the torso cut. So right foot forward, shoulder cut, shoulder guard. So we're up in bump tog, or up in tog, whatever you want to say, posted, whatever. All kinds of guard names. We're going to call it shoulder guard. I'm going to do an advancing step forward, strike down, descending cut, draw their parry. Step as I'm cutting to the midline or a rising cut. So either midline or a rising cut. One more time. We're actually going to do this 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Now let's do it the opposite with left foot forward, an advancing step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Good cut to practice, because one, even though we are kind of staying right around that midline for the second cut, you can very easily drop that to a low line attack. So again, low line be up below the solar plexus, right below the sternum area, sorry, right? You can drop that to a low line attack. Think about that when you're defending. Here, right, if I've got someone now attacking me in the lower part of my flank, right, yes, I can do this low inside middle parry with my leg on, with my arm on my thigh, right, but I have limited protective area. So it might be more of a hanging parry to come around so that my counterattack can be around to the top. And I don't like these camera positions like this. We're going to move this for next time. But again, so if I'm my opponent in this parry, I can do two options. Inside parry is fine, right? I can drop down for the second, and again, I may step back to give myself some distance to my opponent. They're stepping across. If I stayed here, right, they're going to have that advantage of coming inside of my measure, right? So, bang, I can do a low inside parry, right, with my forearm against my body, or I can drop down and out to a hanging parry, to a inverted parry, which then allows me to step in, out, and around and counterattack. Or quite honestly, I can use my footwork and my understanding of measure to retreat back as they come in. Again, your footwork will keep you safe if you do it right. The actions of your blade will disrupt your opponent's strategy and allow you to take advantage of the situation. Your footwork will keep you safe. It might also give you an advantage, but the advantage is it keeps you safe and puts you where you want to be, right? Versus your opponent controlling the encounter. And again, keep in mind your opponent has the same ideas, right? So you're both thinking the same strategy, and that's where the chess match happens, right? Cool. All right, so we're not going to talk about tempo tonight. And again, I'm looking at my notes. We'll talk about tempo next week. Tempo just means time, right? So tempo means the distance, the time it takes for me to hit my opponent, to move from my guard to my opponent. Tempo is a very nebulous thing, right? Why? Because it really depends on the tempo in a fencing match, depends on the action being thrown. That's the tempo. It isn't a second or a quarter of a second or a minute. It isn't a set duration of time. It is the time it takes to throw the technique to my opponent, and the in-tempo technique or response is the time it takes for my opponent to respond to me in the same time frame of me throwing the attack. So we'll talk more about that next week, because I think that is a pretty cool concept. And like anything else, if we kind of boil this down, right, it's distance, it's time, it's movement. There's more things than that, right? But not really, right? If I understand where I am relative to my opponent, then I have to understand what it takes me to traverse that distance and what techniques I can use most efficiently to be there that also keep me safe for their counterattack. That might be the formula to fencing. Somebody's going to be upset about that if I say that, but I don't care. How far I'm away from my opponent? Super important. How do I move in and out of that space? Make that space less if it's too long. Make it shorter if it's too. Make it longer if I'm too close. That's all through my footwork and my body alignment, right? What techniques do I use? Well, what's my line of attack to my opponent? What's clear? What can I make the line of attack? Line of attack is a center line from me to my opponent, right? But they have a line of attack to me as well. If we're all both using the same line, who controls it? I can control it and take advantage, or I can create a new one. Once I create that center line, how long will it take me to use that technique and do that to get to my opponent? My tempo, right? If I'm throwing a rising cut from a high forward guard, right? Because I see that opening in his lower midline, right? Outer mid, whatever. It's going to take longer to do that versus doing it in close, versus trying to understand the time it might take for a different technique. So distance, measure, right? Time, tempo, and not seconds on a clock, but how long does it take me to throw this attack relative to the distance to my opponent, the area I want to strike, their positioning, and the line of attack that we share or don't share. So that's a lot, right? But I think that really is a fundamental of all-encompassing of what is, fighting with. I don't care if it's a sword, if it's a fist, if it's a stick. Doesn't really matter, right? It's all how to move relative to what you want to accomplish. Okay, so enough said. Let's do our 1 minute plank, or 1:30 we're doing now, right? Yep, thank you for the reminder. 1 minute 30-second plank, and then let's do our 25 jumping jack, or no, not jumping jack, our closing sun salutation to close the class out. All right, so minute 30 seconds. You can do it, right? I know you can. down on the ground. Where am I here? All right. So, minute 30. Ready? Go. So if y'all are cooking anything new or making all stuff or picking up a new hobby or trying something different while we're all kind of changing our patterns, let me know, right? And again, changing patterns is kind of a good thing. We get stuck in a routine without even realizing it, whether we're fighting and we're always using the same techniques, whether we're driving the same route back and forth to work, whether we're, brushing our teeth and taking our shower and doing our morning routine in the same way. That's what a routine is, right? Every once in a while, you got to kind of shake yourself up and try something different, right? It's a good reset button to let us try something different in a kind of shitty time, right? But hey, make the most of it if you can. It's hard. I'm struggling every day, right? And we're struggling at our house every day. So, oh man, I kind of lost track there. I think we're coming up on a minute actually. Maybe another 5 seconds to a minute, and we'll go for another 30 after that. If I went longer, well, sorry. You can do it though. We're going to go for another 20 seconds. Tighten that core. Talk, sing, breathe. By talking and making noises, you're actually breathing instead of holding our breath the entire time. I think we got 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2. Hold it for another 5 seconds. Another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Done. Nice job. That seemed short. Was that short? I don't know. You guys tell me. I think it was good anyway. If that was too easy, give me another minute, right? Or later on tonight, add another 2 minutes into your drill, a minute and a half, do more plank. You don't have to. One thing, right? People think I got to do push-ups and sit-ups every day. No, you don't. Right? Just like working your major muscle groups when you work out with weights or whether you work out, you need your muscles need time to relax, right? If you do something every single day, you're never giving your body a chance to relax and grow. So we do this on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. Great. Wednesday's your rest day. Friday's your rest day. Do something on Saturday or Sunday. Keep that pressure going. This is why we're going to I'm thinking about putting that conditioning class on Saturday. We need 3 things in a week. My rule of thumb is if you do something twice a week, you can get better. It will take longer though. If you do something once a week, you're just going to have fun at it, right? You're not going to necessarily see a lot of improvements. Your mind needs, and your body needs to kind of work in concert, right? So I always say if you do something 3 times a week, you will see improvements quite rapidly, actually. Twice, yes, you'll see improvement, but you got to be thinking about it all the time as well. Right? If I leave here and I never think about this until I come back next Tuesday, my body's not going to be, not going to gain anything. If I'm kind of focusing on my footwork, I'm looking at my stances, I'm trying to keep my feet aligned when I'm walking around the house, go up and down the stairs on my balls of my feet to work my calves a little bit, your body keeps that energy rolling and keeps that building process going. So, try to do this as many times as you can. In a week. I don't recommend doing it 5 days, 6 days a week because that just gets overkill. Again, let your body rest. So with that, same old stuff as always. Remember to subscribe to the channel, forward it to your friends. I lost my mic. Send me a comment, send me a message. Let me know if there's something you'd like to see that I'm not doing yet. Again, we cover quite a bit, right? We've covered a lot in the last 5 weeks. But I'm going to start repeating a few things and going a little bit more depth in a few things. But if there's something you're really curious about, if it's more of a thinking or strategy, great. Happy to go through that as well. But with that, everybody have a good weekend if we don't talk. Remember, for those that want to join us Sunday night, 8 o'clock, Zoom session for the school. It's just open. I can have up to 100 people on there if I choose to for as long as we want, right? So join. I'll put the invitation is in our Facebook event listing. I will shoot the number and passcode out in that as well. It's just all of us. There's a handful of us every Sunday night that we just kind of get together and chat for about an hour about everything and anything. So join us, please. We'd love to have you out there. So with that, thank you all very much. I appreciate it, and have a good weekend. Thanks.